بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسل الله تعالى بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا داعيا إلى الله بإذنه وسراجا منيرا. فما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminded us and warned us, and He said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. And He said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا قولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. My brothers and sisters, I remind myself and you that the responsibility of a person, the responsibility that a person is given in society is an indicator of his or her importance in that society. Teachers should have the highest status, and the fact that they don't is an indicator of the foolishness of modern society's failure to recognize the importance of those who shape their future. In Sweden, Norway, and other Scandinavian countries, teachers are the highest paid, and out of them, primary school teachers are paid more than anyone else. That shows how much importance those societies place on the raising of responsible citizens. The general quality of life in those countries is proof that their priorities are correct. In societies which have formal social structures like Bhutan, Sri Lanka, which are both Buddhist, in the Hindu caste system, in India, even in countries like the UK, which is Protestant Christian, Church of England, it is priests who have the highest status. In Bhutan, children passing a priest in the street are required to make sajda thrice to the priest at his feet. In Colombo Airport in Sri Lanka, there is a special cordoned off area in the main concourse with white upholstered sofas and a sign saying, "For religious scholars only." I asked someone who was with me if I could sit there. He told me that I could if I wished to experience speed of evacuation. That reserved space and sofas are meant for Buddhist priests only. We see the same situation with priests in all societies, even in history. Take the ancient Egyptians, Romans, Greeks, Persians, Indians, or any other ancient society for that matter. The highest status was given to those whose purpose in life was to worship God. No other purpose. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this honor not to a priestly class but to all of humanity. He told us that the reason He created us was to worship Him alone, because only He is worthy of worship. I remind myself and you that the worth of something depends on how well it fulfills the purpose of its creation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us why He created us. He said, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم وما خلقت الجن والإنس إلا ليعبدون. In Surah Al-Dhariyat, Allah said, and I, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Jalla Jalaluhu, did not create the jinns and humans. I created not the jinns and the humans except that they should worship me alone. I did not create them for any other purpose. I created them only to worship me. I ask myself, when I stand in Salah, do I realize that I am especially privileged that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose me for this work and created me for this purpose? Do I consider Salah to be a great honor bestowed upon me, or do I consider it to be a burden to be discharged, an onerous duty to be performed? People ask how they can get khushu, concentration in Salah. I believe it begins with reminding ourselves about what we are doing and for whom we are doing it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala could have created us to clean toilets or collect garbage. And if we fulfill that purpose of our creation by riding honey wagons or garbage trucks all our lives, we would have gotten Jannah. But would that have been something we could feel happy about? If you think I'm exaggerating, I'll tell you my experience, personal experience. In 1997 or 98, when I used to live here, I went to a Tabligh Ijtima in Baltimore. Now, you know the routine in a Tabligh Ijtima or in a Tabligh tour is that after Salatul Fajr there is a bayan, there is a lecture. And these bayans after Salatul Fajr, generally they take, they're pretty long, right? Maybe 45 minutes, maybe an hour. Now that is the time for maximum sleep. I mean, you would have stayed awake in the night, prayed tahajjud and so on and so forth, and you get up in time for Fajr. And after Fajr you want to go to sleep, but you have to sit in this bayan. So it's not an easy exercise. It's tough to sit there. And obviously also if you're sitting there, then your body function. So what happens is that immediately after the Fajr Bayan, because then breakfast is served, but between the two, immediately after the Fajr Bayan, you find the longest lines in front of the toilets. So in Baltimore, where we had this Ijtima, where this Ijtima was there, this was in a shopping, it was a mall which had not yet opened, so it was a new mall. And they didn't have toilets in the building. So they had a long line of mobile toilets, these fiberglass structures. There's a long line, there were 30, 40 of them, Allah knows best. I mean, long line of these toilets. So after the Fajr Bayan, I also, stood in the line, and I saw this long line of people standing there. Obviously, I mean, most of them were, or probably all of them were Desi, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, waiting to use the toilet. And obviously, the toilets were all full. Now, while this was going on, suddenly a truck drove up, a tanker truck drove up, and which is euphemistically called a honey wagon. And this was manned by a man and a woman, both white American. And I'm saying this to you, I'm describing this for a reason. They came, and as soon as the toilets were empty, then they put in the pipe. One of them went in there, she put in the pipe and sucked out all the stuff and then washed them, and they did that with all the toilets, and then they went away. And of course, we are all obviously very grateful to these people for this service. But as I was standing there and watching this, I asked one of the people standing in the queue next to me, one of the brothers. I asked him, I said, do you have American citizenship? He said, no. I said, do you want American citizenship? He said, of course. Why do you think I'm here? So I said, how about it if you got American citizenship with the clause that you must spend your entire working life doing this work, cleaning toilets, right? And you would get citizenship, right? Day one passport in your hand, but with the condition that you must clean these toilets for the rest of your working life. Would you like that? He said, Astaghfirullah. So I said, Allah created us to worship Him. That was the purpose of creation. Allah could have created us, and the purpose of our creation could have been to clean toilets. It's an honorable job. It's a halal occupation. It's not like working in an interest-based bank, which we like to do and we are proud of. Cleaning toilets is an honorable job, and it is a halal occupation, not like working in a commercial bank. Yet, we would not like to do that. But what did Allah create us for? Allah created us for the highest, most honorable, most dignified job that can ever be, which is to worship Him Jalla Jalaluhu. And Allah made it easy. My question to myself and you is, do we feel honored and thankful when we stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? I would request you to focus on this thing when you stand in Salah in a few moments from now. Ask yourself, what am I doing? Before you begin your Salah, ask yourself, what am I doing? How do I feel doing that? And then thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Jalla Jalaluhu for choosing you to do this job instead of somebody else. For choosing you to stand before Him instead of someone else. And all this before you even begin Salah. That is how we get khushu in Salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addressed also our immediate anxiety when it comes to fulfilling the purpose of our creation, which is to worship Him alone. Question Shaitan puts in our mind is, if I spend all my time worshipping Allah, then how do I eat? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَنْ يُطْعِمُونَ إِنَّ اللَّهَ هُوَ الرَّزَّاقُ ذُو الْقُوَّةِ الْمَتِينَ. Allah said, I do not seek any provision from them, either from myself or themselves, nor or from my creatures, nor do I ask that they should feed me or my creatures or even feed themselves. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all provider and the owner of power and the most. Verily, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all provider, the owner of power and the strongest, the most strong. I remind you and myself that the Anbiya alayhimus salam understood this and its relationship with having influence in the world. If we understand the relationship of Salah to our welfare in life, it will help us to pray the way and to pray in the way that is meant by iqamati Salah, establishing Salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not tell us to perform Salah or to do Salah or to read Salah or to make Salah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us to establish Salah. But do we see it not only as our job, but as our purpose in life? That is a question to ask. Yuqeemus Salah. That is the title of this khutbah. Yuqeemus Salah. So that we establish Salah. For what? Yuqeemus Salah. What is the meaning of establishing Salah? To establish something means to make it the central factor in all our decision making. For example, if I want to establish good health in my life, I will take every decision based on whether it is good for my health or not. All that I eat or drink, what I do in terms of exercise, how I sit, how I stand, when I sleep, for how long I sleep, where I go, where I don't go, everything will be judged by whether it helps me to establish good health or not. So also if I'm in university with the intention of gaining knowledge to establish myself in my field, then I will judge all the choices I have there against that criterion, which is to gain knowledge to establish myself in that field. I will not get involved with anything that does not help me to establish myself in my field or which may interfere in my focus and concentration to gain knowledge. If I want to establish myself in my marriage so that my spouse and I are happy and contented with each other, then every decision we take will be based on whether it is good for our marriage or not. I do this because I understand the benefit of what I am trying to establish in my life. It is that understanding and my conviction that it is best for me which enables me to take even difficult decisions and to stay on track in the face of all kinds of distractions and temptations. So what is the benefit of establishing Salah? How do I gain in this life and in the Akhirah? Unless we understand how Salah helps us in this life and how it is the most valuable resource that we have, we will never be able to establish Salah in our lives and will never benefit from it in the way that we can and should. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about final success and failure, كُلُّ نَفْسٍ ذَائِقَةُ الْمَوْتِ وَإِنَّمَا تُوَفَّوْنَ أُجُورَكُمْ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ فَمَنْ زُحْزِحَ عَنِ النَّارِ وَأُدْخِلَ الْجَنَّةَ فَقَدْ فَازَ وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. Everyone shall taste death. In Surah Al-Imran, everyone will taste death. And only on the day of resurrection shall you be paid your wages in full. And whosoever on that day is removed away from the fire and admitted into Jannah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah, only that person, he indeed is successful. The life of this world is only deception. It is only the enjoyment of deception and a deceiving thing. وَمَا الْحَيَاةُ الدُّنْيَا إِلَّا مَتَاعُ الْغُرُورِ. My brothers and sisters, the result of the race is decided only at the end. And it is the one who owns that race who makes the rules. The race of life, the one who makes the rules in this race is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And He told us that the winners and losers will be decided not by net worth on Wall Street or Nasdaq or by temporal authority and power, but by whether we get Jannah or the other place. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from the fire. There is no living person today who has more net worth, who has a higher net worth, or more temporal power, more absolute authority than did Ramesses IV, the Fir'aun of Musa alayhi salam. He had both wealth and power. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us what happened to him. The world is deception. About what will get us freedom from the fire and entry into Jannah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said very clearly in the ayat we hear in every Juma. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullaha wa qulu qawlan sadida. Yuslih lakum a'malakum wa yaghfir lakum dhunubakum wa man yuti illaha wa rasulahu faqad faza fawzan azima. O you who believe, have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and always speak the truth. He will then direct you to do righteous deeds and will forgive your sins. And whosoever obeys Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam, only that person, he indeed has achieved a great achievement. He indeed has succeeded. He is the only one who will be saved from the hellfire and given Jannah. How do we get freedom from the fire and entry into Jannah? 3 things. By having taqwa, by speaking the truth, and obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. More next Juma, inshallah. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be pleased with you and never to be displeased. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala jalla jalaluhu to help us to live a life which is pleasing to Him, which automatically will be beautiful in this world and which will get us Jannah in the Akhirah. وصلى الله على نبي الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.